Hamas says it's ready to begin talks immediately on a US-backed proposal for a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza. The plan would involve a phased release of hostages and a significant increase in humanitarian aid to the territory. US President Donald Trump said he's optimistic and that there could be a deal next week. He's been pushing both sides for an end to the war. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is due to travel to Washington for talks on Monday. Let's bring in journalist Karim El-Gohari in Cairo. Karim, let's start with Hamas reacting apparently positively to the most recent ceasefire proposals. What more do we know about that?
Yeah, they say they are ready to enter into serious negotiations. Mind you, this is the US proposal of the 60-day ceasefire and the phased release of hostages in return for Palestinian prisoners is only a framework for negotiations. Hamas reacted positively to that, but there are, of course, still a lot of sticking points. As always, Hamas wants to have guarantees that the war will not resume. They fear that the same thing as last time in January will happen, that there is a ceasefire, then there will be an exchange of hostages and Palestinian prisoners, and then the Israeli army will resume the war. They don't want this to happen again. The other thing that is discussed, this proposal, of course, also includes a partial withdrawal of the Israeli army from the north and the south of the Gaza Strip. And here, of course, it's about the details. When, where is this going to happen? That's one of the sticking points. And the last one is, of course, the US proposal talks about that when there is a ceasefire, there is going to be a sufficient quantity of aid coming in, mainly by the UN and by the Red Cross. And so the question will be, what is a sufficient amount of aid? And the Hamas demands a complete closing of the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation 8 points, where we see that a lot of people are shot at in the last weeks. So a lot will depend on how these negotiations will go. That will start immediately, but also on the upcoming meeting of Trump and Netanyahu in Washington. The main point here will be, will Trump be ready for a permanent end of the war? Until now, he's saying his goal is still to destroy Hamas. And the second thing, will Trump guarantee such a permanent end of the war? That would be really progress in these negotiations.
Yeah, many questions there still up in the air, but you mentioned that every day dozens of people in Gaza are being killed near the aid collection point run by a US-Israeli organization. So how exactly does aid factor into this current ceasefire proposal?
It's pretty important because it's the pressure that is done by aid. The Palestinians say what happens now with this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, that is an Israeli-American organization with US contractors guarded by the Israeli army, that this is not humanitarian relief, but it's part of the Israeli warfare. Mind you, also since March, virtually no other aid is coming in. There's not one parcel that came in from Egypt since last March. So this, together with the increased bombing campaign of the last days, is of course designed to put pressure on Hamas. On the other hand, the pictures and stories that coming out on Gaza and this desperation we are seeing, and this is slowly turning also into a Israeli PR disaster, especially with soldiers and US contractors on this at this GHF points, saying that there's some kind of whistleblowers talking about what's happening there. This Israeli army is shooting at the aid seekers, that the US contractors are shooting at the aid seekers unprovoked. All this, of course, puts pressure on the Israeli side.
All right, Karim El-Gohari in Cairo. Karim, thank you so very much for that.